Mr. Kabiru Adamu joins us now on the program as the MD, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited and security consultant. Well, it's good to have you on the show, Mr. Adamu.
My pleasure, Kyle. Good morning.
Good morning. We're still reeling from that attack on Kwara community in Kaima local government area of Kwara State. Happened earlier last week. And then this weekend, there was an attack all the way in Ekiti local government area of the same state. Now, this local government area is much closer to Kogi and Ekiti. The one in Kayama, obviously closer to Niger State. So it looks like coordinated attacks, perhaps to send a message that, hey, we are on ground, and there are concerns about how this will move further south. But then you see at the top level, the president having meetings with AFRICOM, the governor of a state is speaking to the president. There's also been another operation launched. The police said they have sent tactical squads. What is really going on here? And I ask because I know you have an understanding of the terrorist cells, the groups, and their activities. What are we looking at, Dr. Adamu?
Thank you, Coyote. In simple terms, we're faced with a situation where a criminal enterprise is challenging the supremacy of the use of force by the state. It has attempted severally, and it has been successful. And so, from time to time, it does that and gets benefit in different ways. The benefit could be, terroristic. It could also be financial. And because of that, it emboldened other criminal enterprises to also carry on with their activities. And we're talking principally about two types of criminal enterprises: the ideological, the terrorist group, the ones that clearly are terroristic, and then the other ones that are borderline, which in modern terms are hybrid groups, a combination of criminal enterprises and with some terroristic tendencies. Now, they are able to thrive because of several vulnerabilities that exist within our ecospace. And in the case of Kwara State, these vulnerabilities include the forested parts, such as the Kayenji Park, the porous borders. Of course, there is a border from Benin into Nigeria that this forest kind of leads into, so they take advantage of that. They are also able to thrive because of the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. They exploit socioeconomic conditions in this location: poverty, unemployment, the youth bulge, and name them. They also exploit political grievances where, for instance, you find out that especially in rural communities, their government presence is extremely thin, and they are able to exercise some form of influence in that regard. So these are some of the reasons why Kwara State of recent has become quote unquote the epicenter of the challenge, the security challenge that we have in Nigeria. And I must also mention that it is not because there were no forewarnings. There were forewarnings. I personally have written severally, including to security departments, MD, highlighting what we're hearing, that Kwara is challenged, is likely to be the next epicenter of this, as far back as September last year, and where we are at the moment. So it's really unfortunate, and I do hope that this is a wake-up call for all of us, especially the authorities, to take the necessary action to prevent further deterioration of the security situation, not just in Kwara State, but across several parts of Nigeria.
Dr. Adamu, let's talk about, my just straight question will be, why Kwara? What should we know about why Kwara is such a point of interest at this particular material time?
Well, I mentioned some of the vulnerabilities. The fact that, for instance, the landmass in Kwara, its proximity to a porous border state, its proximity to other hotspots. Niger State is one of them. Its proximity to the northwest of Nigeria, in particular places like Kebbi. In fact, you can draw a line from the forest in Kebbi, in Sokoto, down into north central Nigeria and into Kwara. And then, of course, I did talk about the socioeconomic conditions in Kwara State. I must also say, and this is with all sense of responsibility and in no way particularizing Kwara State, the public security infrastructure in Kwara State is extremely weak. This is, again, not particular to Kwara State. It's almost common in several northern states. And so when you combine all of these factors, it's not surprising, really. Again, the groups, especially the terrorist groups, they saw a willing, quote unquote, a vulnerable population with very keen security presence, and they found a place where their activities would grow. And unfortunately, they were where we are. The activities are growing because they are not being prevented. Remember, we have a national counterterrorism strategy. We've done very little in implementing the provisions of that strategy, not just in Kwara, but in several parts of the country. So, I mean, the groups, they take note of these things, and where they see opportunities, they go into that. And that's why they are in Kwara at the moment. When this whole issue started early last year, the issues we highlighted was first, that vulnerability of the border communities. Number two, the very keen presence of security arrangements. I think Kwara is one of the few states in the country, again, that does not have a robust public security arrangement. The state-level security structure is not as advanced as other parts of the country. So these are some of the vulnerabilities that are being exploited by the group.
Well, I hate to, play up the terrorist cells and put them in the limelight, because this is also what this is about, right? They want all of that attention, but it's also important to really identify who and what we're dealing with here. Some will say bandits, some others will come out up front and say terrorists, some say Boko Haram. In fact, we've heard Lakurawa, some have said it's a Sadiku cell and all of that. From your own analysis, who is responsible for this? Who does this look like?
So I think it's not a case of either or. It's an echo space that consists of several groups. The bandits are there, they've been active. The terrorist groups are there. So as an example, we know that a group affiliated with JNIM, which is the Sahel-based Al-Qaeda affiliated group, it has claimed an attack in Kwara State. We also know that the Mahmudawa group, which was formed by a certain person called Mahmuda, who had training in Libya, including especially for the fabrication of IEDs and other military tactics. The good thing is that he was arrested by Nigerian security forces and is currently being tried. We also know that there are groups affiliated with the Jamaat al-Ahl wal Jihad, and in this instance, a particular name, the one you mentioned, has emerged, suggesting, for instance, that JAS has an active cell in parts of Niger State and parts of Kwara State. Apart from that, you also have groups that are affiliated with in the Islamic State in West Africa province that are also active in Kwara State. Now, what is I think really significant is that over time, these groups have found ways to structure themselves to allow for resilience and continuity. In other words, they can have commanders that are heading very small groups. And so even though they are affiliated to the main group, such as JAS or JNIM or Al-Qaeda, the commanders are largely independent. They do profess to that particular ideology, but then they are largely independent in terms of what they do. So I think that's why I said it's not a case of either or. It's a case of an echo space that allows several groups to operate. And part of the challenge that I've seen over, especially from our public security department, and of course even the media, unfortunately, is that inability to disaggregate. We think, so just because, for instance, Ansaru is active or JNIM is active, it means that the other group will not be active. No, it's an echo space that allows all of them to kind of operate. And from time to time, I did mention the hybrid groups, they are able to cooperate among themselves and exact influence. So we must approach it in that manner, not to look at it in a disaggregated form, to think because one group is active, then the other ones are not active. It's an echo space that allows unfortunately, several groups to coexist. From time to time, they fight among themselves, and we've seen the results. But then generally, they found ways to kind of cooperate among themselves. One scenario that I can paint is where you see mass abduction. The possibility is that the ideological terrorist groups may have contracted the criminal enterprises, the bandits, to carry out those mass abductions, and then they take over the negotiation process.
So, Dr. Damu, I understand the need to disaggregate, but you'd understand that for the everyday Nigerian, they really don't need the disaggregation in the sense that they see it as a crime against them, an attack against them. And what they just want is either you ensure it doesn't happen as a security agency, or you arrest them, eliminate them if it's proven too difficult, prosecute them, ensure that justice is done. And for a lot of even those in government, they'll tell you it's crime, it's criminality, that's what it is purely, and that's how it should be seen. But yes, in terms of how to approach it at that level of security, it needs to be disaggregated. And it takes me to the next point. The question around, the community people saying they came, said they wanted to preach to them in that sense, some ideology that is extreme. We understand that there were also Christians who were killed in that community, church burned. So what is this idea of preaching to them? What is the end game here?
So I did mention at the beginning of our conversation that we have a national counterterrorism strategy. That strategy is meant to not just identify, but to forestall, this type of radicalization and violent extremism. So the ideology is simple. It's an ideology that is affiliated with the two global jihadist franchises, either Al-Qaeda or Islamic State. And in simple terms, they want to establish, quote-unquote, a Sharia caliphate that, for them, would probably run across certain locations, including parts of Nigeria. It's an ideology that professes certain aspects, for most of us, a misunderstanding of the Islamic laws, including, for instance, seeing Muslims who do not profess to that particular ideology as non-Muslims, and so they kill them. It's well documented in terms of the what they are trying to achieve, but I think for the purpose of public conversation, it is an ideology that professes to establish that Sharia caliphate. First off, they do not recognize the authority of the state, the Nigerian state. Secondly, if they would want to establish their own authority, and so in that instance, they would collect taxes. They would, establish an administration and even justice, their own justice system. And so where they see community fighting, they would rule over that and decide who is guilty and who is not. And where penalties are to be paid, they would do that. They would also, for instance, where offenses are committed, they would also impose some form of penalties, including flogging in public. We've seen that in the Northeast. We've not recorded that yet in any part of the North Central. But these are all examples of their own ideology and how they go about implementing that ideology. I must also say that there is an economic side to it, because of course, like I said, they do impose levies, they do collect taxes, and where they can, they would impose some form of dues. And insist that it's collected. So someone who has cattle will have to pay taxes to them. If you are a farmer, you have to pay a level of, some levies and dues to them for allowing you to farm. So there are different components to the enforcement of what they understand as Sharia law.
Dr. Damo, we're going to talk about the place of the state, the might of the state to curb this element. But what crosses my mind? You've done a lot of research, survey, you have reports coming out, you share those reports sometimes with the public. What is the quality of lives of these people that are within the hinterlands, that are constantly on the edge? Maybe you can explain so that there'll be an appreciation from persons in Abuja. I'm not saying they don't know, but maybe the audience can also empathize with the people and pressure government to really protect the lives of our citizens who don't have the luxury that the city centers have.
In simple terms, livelihood in the rural areas has been reduced to a state frankly, that Hobbesian existence that we read in books when Thomas Hobbes, wrote his theory about, that the Hobbesian state of life, where the mighty rather, is have its way. So in this instance, there is no infrastructure. We must start with that. The little infrastructure that is available does not support livelihood. So most of these rural dwellers are farmers. And at the moment, because these groups kind of control even economic activities, you can't go to your farm until you pay or you agree to certain aspects of what they want to achieve, and you pay them first off to tilt. Secondly, when you come to the planting season, and then when it comes to harvesting. We've also recorded instances of where they raid villages. The most deplorable fact is what happens to women. They forcefully sometimes take these women, do unspeakable things to them, and force them into some form of sex slavery over a period. And then where they can, they take over, and I think this is significant, especially for some parts of the north central and northwest of Nigeria. The mining activities there, they are very particular. They determine, for instance, where there are minerals. They want to take charge of that, and they exploit those minerals for economic advantages. In addition, because the movement is also, becomes risky, they are able to take charge and control travel routes. It becomes very difficult for these rural dwellers to move from point A to point B. So frankly, life for the average Nigerian rural dweller has become extremely difficult and challenging. And I was very happy this weekend when I heard the Pope, calling on Nigerian authorities to enhance the protection of life. And I think that should be the message, which is from your question, should be the word that the average Nigerian should emphasize. How do we better protect life? Some of what we've missed along the way is this absence of local government administration. Because, of course, once there is no local government administration, then development, as it were, would be extremely difficult at that level. Sometimes we tend to forget the land mass in Nigeria, over 900,000 square kilometers, with over 8,000 watts. So when you start to look at the nitty-gritty of these challenges at those levels, especially at the water level, then you discover why it's easy for these groups to operate. They exploit these vulnerabilities, the absence of infrastructure and other things like that. So we must begin to look at, I think, security from that prism. How do we reestablish authority, administration at that local government level so that we can address the root causes, the socio-economic challenges, political challenges, environmental challenges, etc.
Very important points there. They call it the kinetic and non-kinetic in that sense, but there are socioeconomic issues that predispose people to be victims of these attacks. But I want to speak to the kinetic, Dr. Adamu. I'm sure you must have seen the meeting that President Bola Tinubu had with the AFRICOM heads. In fact, Nigeria service chiefs were there as well as the National Security Advisor. The president also visited Turkey. So we've had, arrangements now that seem to be yielding fruits, or at least will yield fruits. We expect them to in the coming days and weeks. So what should we be looking at here as a government to tap into, without forgetting the fact that with the previous administration, we also had some of these deals. In fact, we got Super Tucano jets, and it was said that this will be a game changer once we get the Super Tucano jets. Forget it, the terrorists are gone. But here we are, Dr. Adamu. It looks like they have multiplied. So how do we ensure we don't make the same mistakes we made in the past? And what should we be looking at here in the fine lines?
Okay, I think in simple terms, we are we should think global, but act locally. No international partner will solve our local challenges. Our national security apparatus has three components. First, the organizations, the NDAs that make up security. I always say there are 42 of them. 29 primary ones, and then an additional 12, 13 that are associated that they support the security, such as the justice, MDA. Outside of that, we have instruments for security. I did refer to the National Counterterrorism Strategy. We have the defense policy, we have the national, name them. And then, of course, lastly, is the partnerships that we have. But the beauty of the forefathers of the Constitution is that they had these three things in mind. They did not envisage that we would only do one and leave the others. So when I say we should think global but act locally, we need to fix our home first before someone comes in. I'll give you an example. The National Security Council, when last did that council meet? I mean, last year it sat down only once. So we need to look back and reinvigorate such structures that we have in place that are embedded within our Constitution, because they are the instruments that would allow for any foreign partner who wants to come and support us. We need to talk about security sector governance. We need to talk about security sector reform. How do we make, we've been discussing security at the rural areas. It's about security sector reform. The villager, that elderly woman in the market, she should be able to feel the function of security, that security is protecting her. She should be able to have a phone number that if something goes wrong, she knows when she calls, someone will respond to it, and that in minutes, the person will respond. So these are some of the, when I say act local, some of the ingredients that we need to reinforce. Yes, it's important, just like I've explained, as part of the national security apparatus, to have partnerships. And we've been attempting over time to have this type of partnership. But I think in our case, it's very absolutely important because we don't have the local capacity for using the security equipment that we need. So yes, our partners can help us in that regard, but I know that the Tinubu administration has, as part of the security imperatives, a desire to increase local production of equipment, security equipment, by 40%. As when we come to 2027. So these are some of the areas that our partners can help us. But I must emphasize that we should, as we continue to look outside, we must also look inward and improve those ingredients. The instruments that we have for security, we're not implementing them in the manner that they should be implemented. Most of them are constitutional instruments. They are bodies that are recognized by the Constitution. So let's take a moment and reflect, do the man in the mirror situation, ask those critical questions. Why haven't we been implementing them? And then as early as possible, we should start doing that. The partners that come will support us only if we correct some of the structural challenges that we currently have within the system.
Mr. Damo, before I let you go, one quick question. It looks like violent attacks prior to polls, major polls in Nigeria, is also used as a demarketing tool. We've seen it in the time of Jonathan. We've seen it at different times. It looks like perhaps the people that are alleged to be involved, politicians here, take turns to do these things. Is there a way we can reverse this thing I called childish, very dangerous, juvenile kind of politics we play here?
Yes, and I think the onus is on our intelligence departments. These things don't operate in a vacuum. They are there within the political space. So if we're able to monitor them, to identify them with incontrovertible evidence, and then remove political expedience and arrest and punish those who are involved, not just the pawns on the street, but those that are behind them. First, it will serve as deterrence, and then secondly, it would reduce the occurrences. But for as long as, think about it, we've got seasons of elections, and there was a year when about 1,200 people were killed during just one particular electoral cycle. I think that was 2011. Now, I doubt if there is one person that was penalized for either supporting or contributing to that electoral violence. So as long as we allow that type of impunity to continue, then unfortunately the weaponization of insecurity, as the case may be, to achieve political objectives will continue to occur. If we strengthen law enforcement and start punishing offenders, then maybe the deterrence element will come up. But I think the tool is actually in enhancing intelligence and then strengthening our justice delivery systems.
Dr. Damu, we have to thank you so much, but a quick one, just a one-liner. People are asking, at what point should they begin to call out the Minister of Defense?
Well, the moment he was appointed, he was given a responsibility, but I must also remind those who are singling him out. I did mention that our national security apparatus has 3 components. One of the components are these MDAs. The MDAs, like I said, are 29 primarily, and then another additional 12 that are supportive. Now, the military are only 4. That's even if you are generous. Air Force, Army, and Navy, then as well as the DIA. Right. So if you take 4 out of this 42, it's unfathomable and unfair to think that 4 will do the work of the 42.
Right.
So again, I think it's important as we call on the Minister of Defense, we should also remember that there are other departments that are meant to support it. Border security, as an example, is not the responsibility of the military. There are 2 organizations, the immigration and the customs, that have that responsibility. Internal security law is the responsibility of the police. So when people call on the Minister of Defense, they should please remember that they should also call on these other agencies and ask for accountability in the same manner that they're asking for accountability for the Minister of Defense.
Well, Dr. Adama, don't forget George Orwell's Animal Farm that says all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Hence, some will get some more attention than flax. But Dr. Kabir, I'm always a pleasure speaking with you, MD Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited and Security Consultant. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We'll take a break now, and when we return, let's talk politics, which is very important to governance. Stay with us.